As the cliche goes, April showers bring May flowers. But usually what comes after is the heat and dryness of summer. Hello again, Essay here. And before the hot weather of the holiday shows up, you should indulge in my new short story, The White Cat, a free exclusive on Substack. The links are down below in description. Join Margot Thompson, a beautiful stage actress and recent widow who finds salvation in the form of a white cat during a night of terror. While checking out my oddball thriller, remember that my Glitch series is still available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The links are down below in the description. While you'll find my peculiar story about a white pussy entertaining, that doesn't mean I'm out of ideas. I still have more stories coming down the pike, so as long as I don't run into any mishaps, you'll see those stories as well. Now let's get back to the video. Hello again, Essay here. Long ago, some very smart people, primarily in academia, came up with this phrase: you can't separate the art from the artist. Now you saying, what does that have to do with the price of beans in Toledo? Getting that part. Well, that phrase comes from something that was referred to as new criticism. And you say, what the hell is that? Yeah, well, it was basically an academic theorem involving literature and literary criticism. Indeed, the first book that covered that subject was called The New Criticism, written by this guy called Crow. Yeah, like Russell Crowe, but I don't think the two guys are related. And that led to a bunch of study in academia, primarily in Cambridge and then later here in the United States. And they basically studied various previous writers such as T.S. Eliot and Milton. And then eventually it migrated over to the United States. And other people got in the game. Like this guy called Richards. He wrote a book called Practical Criticism, The Principle of Literary Criticism, and the Meaning of Meaning. And you say, so what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? I'm getting that part, okay. Anyway, these people basically were looking at old texts, old literature, stuff going back centuries, and basically looking at it with a new set of eyes. Like, for example, Shakespeare. A lot of people say, yeah, I like Shakespeare, so what? Yeah, but these people basically kind of deconstructed Shakespeare and tried to say, was there any deeper meaning to his writings? Like, for example, The Merchant of Venice. Some of these people said, oh, The Merchant of Venice was about anti-Semitism. And not so much anti-Semitism on the part of the characters, but the writer himself. They said that Shakespeare basically had a clear animus towards Jews. Did he? And then they looked at people like Mark Twain. Like the story of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. And they basically said that these stories clearly had a clear animus towards brown people. Now, was that true? Well, let's just say there's people still arguing about that today. Because anyone who's ever read those books said that, yeah, the character Jim, the token black guy in the story, yeah, he wasn't being treated nice. And don't get me started with Injun Joe, that character. No, yeah. And then, of course, when it comes to 20th century literature, yeah, these people were looking at all sorts of stuff. And not just literature, but also other types of art. You know, like paintings, for example. I mean, Picasso, yeah, he was declared a misogynist. Not so much because of his art, but because the way he treated all the females in his life. And I have to admit, yeah, there's something to that. And then they deconstructed T.S. Eliot. Basically said the guy was a perv. And I'm thinking, yeah, I guess you could say there's something going on there. And then they deconstructed people like James Joyce, and basically declared that he was basically antisocial. You know, he basically hated people. And I'm thinking, if you read Ulysses, I guess you could say that he didn't have much to say about people living in Dublin at the beginning of the 20th century, but anyway, this video is not so much about new criticism of art in general, but about one particular artist. In fact, you may have heard these guys if you were around back in the 90s. Yeah, the Gallagher brothers. And you say, who? Yeah. The band Oasis. And you say, oh, those guys? Yeah, those guys. Now, of course, that goofy guy, Paul Joseph Watson, he's got some interesting video about these cats. Okay, are you ready? Here we go.
Oasis generated a lot of excitement after announcing they were going to reform the band after a 15-year hiatus. But not everybody's pleased about it, namely those who somehow feel threatened by the nostalgic rehabilitation of a cultural moment which existed before their woke ideological crusade turned everything to utter shite. Prime example being Simon Price's whining temper tantrum in The Guardian. Stop the celebrations! Oasis are the most damaging pop cultural force in recent British history.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
90% of this article isn't about the quality of Oasis's music. It's about mean words Noel and Liam Gallagher said in the past and their, God forbid, contrarian political opinions. The reasons why Oasis were so damaging. Because Liam Gallagher deployed some spicy insults. Because Noel Gallagher described Ed Miliband and Jeremy Corbyn as fucking communists. Where's the lie? Because Noel complained about Glastonbury being too woke. It is. And because Noel had the temerity to play a guitar with a Union Jack emblazoned on it. You know, the flag of the country where he's from. Which offends this moron to such a degree he haughtily dismisses it as a butcher's apron. It's no coincidence that Oasis are the band of choice for flag shaggers and reform voters. Oh yes, flag shaggers, from the same people who'll denounce you as a bigot for thinking this is a bit too much. In other words, because Noel and Liam have refused to feed themselves into the screeching progressive purity filter and become dutiful NPC automatons for the message, the example they set for others cannot be tolerated. Oh no, the Gallagher brothers don't share the same banal opinions as other vapid celebrities, the political class and corporate HR departments. How dare they?
The music industry doesn't like Mavericks.
Yeah.
You know, the reason why there are no bands now is because in the 90s, Oasis and Primal Scream and Blur and Pulp and all those, we were the mainstream. And what the music industry doesn't like the mainstream being a load of fellas on drugs, drunk half the time on a Tuesday. Like, they don't like that. They like people like Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Who they say, wear this dress and shut it. Wear this, sing that, and go home.
Price then bemoans the fact that Pulp, another working-class 90s band from the north, aren't more popular than Oasis. Presumably this is based on the fact that Jarvis Cocker has all the correct ensemble of politically correct opinions and isn't problematic. Because it's definitely not based on them being a more successful or better band, which they clearly weren't. The Gallagher's knuckle-dragging ideas on sexuality and politics arguably shouldn't matter. We're all familiar with the concept of separating separating the art from the artist. Dude just wrote an entire article in which he failed to separate the art from the artist. Something extremely popular, almost universally liked, exists. The Guardian, why said thing is in fact incredibly problematic and you should hate it.
My children now will have less freedom because of this ridiculous woke culture.
This celebrity craze that's going on at the moment, it's not for me, man.
Do you think that it's dangerous for society to have this obsession with celebrity?
Yeah, I think there's too many famous people in the world. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? I think it's just everyone seems to be famous, don't they? Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of famous people out there for the wrong reasons. And at least you're famous because you're a beautiful young man and you do a great job on the radio.
Thanks.
And I'm famous because I'm another beautiful young man and I do a great job on the stage and that. But there's a lot of famous people out there, so-called celebrities, that
Yeah.
They're famous because they're orange. Do you know what I mean? And got massive white teeth and stuff like that. So yeah, I get the right up when people call me a celebrity.
Shitlibs despise Oasis for 4 primary reasons. 1, much of Oasis's fan base consists of white working class men, for whom the pontificating metropolitan liberal elite has a seething visceral hatred, exemplified by our Prime Minister, who after threatening to mass arrest them for complaining about immigration, is now inflicting another punishment by planning to ban smoking in pub gardens. 2, Noel and Liam are that rare breed of celebrity that's become too big to cancel, meaning they can get away with, God forbid, saying controversial things that are true, without having their careers and legacy destroyed by the baying mob.
And there's like bombers roaming free around the fucking city. And our government, and the government before them, and the next fucking government after this one, will be powerless to stop it. Because of some fucking hippie ideal about people's religious beliefs.
3, Oasis reminds people of when Britain had a distinct cultural identity that wasn't constantly denigrated and diluted. And 4, Oasis has always exemplified that kind of swaggering confidence which they're desperately trying to social engineer out of working class white men, and instead turn them all into gelded, emotionally incontinent, mental health jellyfish, ashamed of themselves, ashamed of their country, constantly pussyfooting around, chronically anxious about how they behave and the words that come out of their mouth.
Like I was going up to Manchester the other week and fucking some guys going, can you put your mask on the train? And I was like, and they said, because the transport police will get on, they'll find you £1,000, but you don't have to put it on if you're eating. So I was saying, all right, so this killer virus that's sweeping through the train is going to come and attack me, but it's going to see me having a sandwich and go, leave him.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, but
He's having his lunch.
Shitlibs hate Oasis for the same reason they hate Morrissey, despite having once worshipped the ground that he walked on, because Morrissey told the truth about what's happening in his homeland, about the consequences of mass migration. He had the temerity to skewer how woke turns everything to shit.
It's just another word for conformity. It's the new way of saying conformity. Diversity. You don't see anything diverse anywhere.
No.
It's all conformity.
It's having the opposite effect, in fact, isn't
It is, because when people talk about diversity, they don't think about the great things that we don't have in common.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are ignored. And they always made countries very interesting, because you could travel to Germany, you could see the most incredible culture. You go to Italy, you see the most incredible culture. Now they just want everything to be the same.
Yeah.
So diversity means conformity. It doesn't mean avant-garde or let's make really interesting, strange art. It means box everybody.
Yeah.
Diversity, I think, is
It's
a
dying,
dreadful word. Pin it to anything and that situation is finished. It's a terrible word.
Now, some of the very same people who grew up with Smiths posters on their walls bitterly campaign to have Morrissey posters removed from public spaces. All because, just like Liam and Noel, he refused to bend the knee. He refused to sacrifice his integrity to be absorbed by the woke bloc.
Okay, you saw that. Now, of course, I will concede I did listen to Oasis music back in the 90s. What, did I consider myself a fan? I like, what was it, Wonderwalls? I mean, yeah, that was an okay song. But I really didn't, actually spend money, buying their albums, okay? But I wasn't the kind of person that would hear the damn song come on K-Rock, that old radio station, which actually still exists, and then change the channel. No. I listened to the stuff. And wait for it. On MTV, back when it was still showing music, I watched the music videos. And then, of course, I used to watch this one program called 120 Minutes with this guy Penfield. And no, I don't think his parents called him that because they figured in the future he was going to look like Telly Savalas. And of course, anyone who remembers Matt Penfield from 120 Minutes on MTV knows who I'm talking about. Therefore, I don't know how to explain it to you. But yeah, and he got into the drama that was happening in that band, and one reason why the band basically broke up before the 90s ended. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, blood is thicker than water. And the Gallagher brothers, they had a lot of issues. In fact, I remember hearing those stories about how those guys would have bust-ups and madness going on in their family dynamic, and how it basically bled into the damn band itself. I mean, what can you say about that, right? But the fact that the band is getting, they're putting the band back together, I say, well, okay, I guess Oasis fans should be happy about that. However, as you saw in that Goofy Guy's video, apparently not everyone is happy about it. Why? Apparently because, like J.K. Rowling, these guys speak their mind. And I'm thinking, okay, so they want to call a spade a spade. I got no beef with that. But apparently some people do, particularly in England. And I'm sitting there thinking, these people using all the usual isms to lie and smear about the Gallaghers, talking about, oh, they're neo-Nazis, they're white supremacists, and on and on and on. And I'm thinking, really, dude? Because if you saw in that video, there was clips of them from where they were, chatting to some podcaster, and they basically didn't hold back. They said what they really thought about all the radical leftism happening in England right now. And believe me, they ain't feeling it. I'm thinking. But the fact that so many radical leftists, and wait for it, people in the establishment media had such a hissy fit over these guys, it makes you wonder why. I mean, we're not talking about, I'm trying to think of a good example, because I have to admit, I'm kind of slow on the draw when it comes to modern music. In fact, most of it I can't stand. Yeah, it'll be like, say, Taylor Swift getting on her soapbox and suddenly deciding she was a Trump supporter. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, I know that she'll probably annoy more than a few Swifties if she did that. But still, the fact that the Gallagher brothers, who've been pretty much out of circulation for 15 years now, at least according to that video, I'm thinking, why are you getting all bent out of shape? Most of their fan base is well into their 40s. Some are probably close to 50 now. And they probably don't even listen to Oasis anymore. And all these Zoomers and Generation Alpha, they say Oasis? Oasis what? You mean some Oasis out in the middle of the desert? Yeah. That's how far that's how long these guys have been out of circulation. I mean, it would be like if, say, for example, Robert Plant decided to get what's left of Led Zeppelin back together. And of course, you say Led Zeppelin? Yeah. It was a real great band back when I was growing up. But most of the people who listen to them, man, they're like my age now. Now, of course, my generation would still listen to Led Zeppelin if Robert Plant and the guys got back together. But the thing is, the younger crowd, they say, Led who? Yeah. And indeed, there's been more than a few examples where bands who have been, let's just say, out of circulation for a while had gotten back together again. Yeah, because I remember Fleetwood Mac. They got back together again briefly to perform. And Roger Daltrey and Pete Townshend, I remember, I think it was like about 5-10 years ago, they went on tour with John Bonham's son, and I forgot who was standing in for the bassist, because it was only just those two guys left, and they went on tour as The Who. And you say The Who? Yeah, The Who. That was almost a bit before my time. Those guys were from the 60s. But good. Who was good? But thing is, the young crowd, they didn't know who Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend were. I mean, that's how far they've been out of circulation. And of course, Mick and Keith or the Rolling Stones, they're still touring, even though old Charlie Watts is in a box somewhere out there in Forest Lawn now. In fact, I don't even know who's drumming for them, but I guess they got someone doing it. I mean, it'd be kind of crazy if Mick and Keith hire some AI to do the drumming for them. And I have to admit, the way that technology is growing by leaps and bounds, you could probably have some AI musicians before too long. Will they be any good? I won't go that far, but hey, the technology is like evolving at a geometric rate. So yeah, don't be surprised for too long when you start seeing music on the computer and you say, ooh, that's a nice song, I like that song, who's singing that? And it says a computer singing that, and you say like, wait, what? And you say, yeah, it's an AI, it's an AI song sung by a damn bucket of wires and transistors. And then you say, yeah. Now, will the Gallagher brothers, will they get the band back together and get out there and start performing and put out good music? That's a very good question. No answers. But as far as their political views are concerned, can you separate the art from the artist? Well, if you take a page from the old New Criticism crowd, which, wait for it, you ready? The New Criticism crowd, they're not really around anymore. And you say, wait, what? Yeah, they were the big deal back in the past, but by the time the 20th century slowly was winding down, they got basically pushed aside. And you say, oh, really? Yeah, really. And you know who pushed them aside? You wait, are you ready? Feminist literary criticism. And you say, feminist? Yep. And wait for it, something called post-structuralist and deconstructionist theory. And you say, oh, the wokesters. Yeah. Or the precursors to what would be wokeism. Yeah. Those people popped up sometime, I think it was in the around 1980s or so. And they basically pushed back against the new critics that popped up during the middle 20th century and basically pushed them out of academia. And then you're surprised that most woke stuff, or I should say most art created with that feminist ideal and that deconstructionist theory behind it tends to, what does old Trump say, is shit. I mean, you don't have to watch the Alkaloid to know. I mean, it is what it is. But hey, the fact that the Gallagher brothers are, let's just say this, antithetical to anything woke, maybe their music might sound pretty good. Maybe. Because anyone who's seen art, any kind of art, infused with all this deconstructionism and postmodernist garbage, as well as all this feminist garbage, it's just intolerable. And I'm talking about across the board, where it be books and literature, paintings and stuff like that. And of course, finally, movies and music and stuff like that. I mean, it's just unpalatable. And of course, as you saw in that video, they also talked to old Morrissey. Yeah, you know, from the Smiths. And I have to admit, Morrissey, well, he's always been like a iconoclast. I mean, Morrissey, he reminds me of Marlon Brando from The Wild Ones. And you say, what? Yeah, it's an old film from the 50s with Sal Mineo, don't sweat it. But anyway, there was a great scene in that film where Marlon Brando and his motorcycle gang showed up in some hick town. And one of the locals asked him, what are you guys rebelling against? And Marlon Brando immediately shot back, what do you got? Well, anyway, that's basically what Morrissey's all about. He's the constant rebel. He doesn't kowtow to any established order, whether it be the old Thatcherites back in the 80s when he and his bandmates were in their heyday, or all the crazy woke crap going on right now in England. I mean, he's against all of it. Yeah. That's good. And from what I've listened to from him, he's still actually putting out albums, and I actually listened to some of his more recent stuff, and you know what? It's not bad. Of course, it's not as good as the original stuff he was putting out with the Smiths, but it'll do. Well, that's all I gotta say about the Gallagher brothers and the shitstorm they caused by speaking their mind in England. And that's my opinion.